My name is Claire, and I am 27 years old, living in Riverside Valley. I often find myself staring out of the window on cloudy days, trying to recall snippets of laughter and love from my childhood, but they remain elusive, floating just beyond my grasp like wisps of smoke in the air. My brother Mitch is older than me, but our lives have always been like two separate boats tied to the same dock. We drifted aimlessly in the tide of our father's indifference. Each morning, the sun peeked through the tree branches outside, spilling gold onto our kitchen table, and yet I felt cold, forgotten, as if the warmth was always meant for someone else. There exists a particular kind of pain in a father's neglect, a gnawing emptiness that seeps under your skin like a slow poison, making each breath feel weighted down. Jay, my father, was so consumed by his work that he left us to fend for ourselves emotionally. Questions bubbled in my mind constantly. Why am I unworthy of his affection? What makes me so invisible? As months melted into years, I felt more lost beneath the weight of his absence. Home transformed into a stage of painful silence, where every room echoed my longing but only returned the sound of my heart breaking quietly. It was then that Manny swept into our lives, a breath of fresh air wrapped in a charming smile that trapped my father's attention like a moth to a flame. I remember the first time Manny sat at our table. Casual dinner turned into a showcase for his many talents. He played the guitar effortlessly as Jay leaned back in his chair, clapping and laughing, eyes sparkling with pride. It was as if a switch had flipped overnight. My father had become the nurturing figure I had always wished for, only it was never meant for Mitch and me. I sat there, clutching the patterned tablecloth, feeling the threads dig into my palms as my father handed Manny fork after fork of lavish praise. Look at him go, he's a natural. Jay's words swirled around my head, filling the air until I could practically choke on my bitterness. My heart felt like it was boiling over with jealousy, the temperature rising higher every time Jay played the role of the proud father to Manny. I would glance at Mitch from across the table, and I could see that he wore a similar mask of anguish. We were stuck in this macabre dance of feigned happiness, while the real festering wounds lay hidden beneath our skin. Every laugh our father cracked for Manny felt like a dagger into my chest, twisting and churning until I wanted to scream. What about us? The evening of the fateful dinner was supposed to be different, a chance for us to reconnect as a family over roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Yet the moment we sat down and Jay's eyes lit up at the sight of Manny, I could feel the waves of bitterness crashing over me like a relentless tide. This was supposed to be a gathering where laughter echoed, a chance for us to be one together, but the air fizzed with tension. Manny, you really nailed that solo at the showcase last week. You've got real talent, kid, Jay exclaimed, his voice ringing with pride. Thanks, Mr. J. Manny's eyes sparkled. I could see the warmth radiating from Jay towards him like an invisible shield. It took everything inside me not to blurt out the choke of envy nestled in my throat. I felt my fork shake in my clammy hand, my heart pounding as the weight of the pendulum swung to push the words out of my lips unbidden. Why do you always treat him better than us? I blurted out, tears instantly stinging my eyes. A heavy silence settled over the dining table, a thick fog that rolled in without warning. Jay's fork clattered to his plate. The smile on his face faded into shock, and the steady rhythm of conversation came to a grinding halt. Mitch widened his eyes at me, his mouth opening slightly as he looked from me to our father, tension vibrating like a taut string between the three of us, finally snapping as if all unspoken grievances had been laid bare. Jay, however, broke the silence, but his laughter rang hollow. Oh, Claire, you must be joking. This is just a friendly dinner. He dismissed my raw confession with a wave of his hand, brushing it aside as though it were a trivial joke, as if my pain was nothing more than an annoying buzz in the background of his perfectly orchestrated life. I felt a chasm open inside my heart, and the unbearable ache of rejection felt as though it would swallow me whole. The glow of the dining room seemed to dim, my family growing distant like shifting shadows fading into darkness. Not just a joke, Dad, I replied, my voice trembling, a fragile flicker of defiance igniting inside me. You don't even see us anymore. Claire, you're overreacting, Jay said, finally casting a glance towards my plate, but it lacked any warmth, lacking the caring nature I craved. His tone was condescending, a dull knife cutting through the tension. You and Mitch are doing great. Relax a bit. You don't understand, I continued, my heart racing, my breath quickening. It's always about Manny. I can't breathe for the jealousy you place upon us and how easily you've replaced us. Don't you see the hurt you're causing? Just let it go. It's not important. Manny piped in, his bright smile faltering for a brief moment. They're just being dramatic, right, Claire? How easy it was for him to say that while not understanding the history of neglect swirling around us, forming a storm that I wished to unleash. My voice felt hoarse and raw, each word shaped by bottled pain. Mitch sat silent, barely moving, eyes on me, silently urging me to pull back. No, it is important, I forced out between clenched teeth. The frustration coursed through my veins, making my heartbeat echo louder in my ears. You don't see how we've grown up in the shadows of your indifference, Dad, and not even a hug for my birthday or a kind word when it was needed most. You didn't notice us at all. The tension at the table surged. I could feel tears cascading down my cheeks, hot and furious. Jay's eyes softened for a brief moment, but it was quickly replaced with frustration as he shook his head. You always make everything so dramatic. You'll see that your way doesn't matter in time. On some level, a small hidden corner of my heart, there was a flicker of hope that maybe my father would get it, that he would finally recognize what I had been trying to say all along. But that flame was smothered under the thick blanket of indifference he had wrapped around himself. I looked around the table, seeing Manny and Jay sharing a laugh over some inside joke. The warmth between them twisted my heart into knots. I can't do this anymore, I said quietly, not even sure if anyone could hear me over the rising tension. The weight of rejection crushed me, and the most intense feeling of loneliness surrounded me like a storm cloud while I backed away from the table slowly. There were so many words left unspoken, yet it felt as though I had thrown myself against a wall, trying to make sense of it all when nothing would change. I could feel the gaze of my brother lingering on me, but I didn't dare to look back. My feet moved on instinct, leading me out of that suffocating air, away from the scene of unkind truths that my father would not understand. I hurried up the stairs, each step feeling like a heavy weight pulling me deeper into despair. Once I reached my room, the door clicking shut behind me felt like closing a chapter I could no longer bear to live through. Each breath I took filled my lungs with anger, sorrow, and yearning. The silence was a stark contrast to the cacophony of emotions exploding within me. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, a rhythmic reminder of the wild tempest that raged inside, fueled by years of neglect and longing. Alone in the stillness of my room, I sat on my bed, feeling my heartbeat slow to a thrum as thoughts churned furiously in my mind. The pain of neglect would not consume me any longer. It was a shadow that I must cast away. I resolved to devise a plan. I needed a way to confront the truth, to force my father to look into the reality of his indifference and how the bright light of attention poured solely onto Manny had eclipsed everything that should have belonged to me and Mitch. I would not be silenced any longer, and soon enough, Jay would be forced to face the very emotions he had tangled away in the dark. That night, beneath the heavy quilt of silent anguish, I began to unravel the threads of my plan, a notion born from the fury that had ignited deep within in the days that stretched ahead like an endless road. A storm brewed inside of me, one that churned with both fury and determination. I could not let the love I so desperately longed for slip away quietly into the night. Thoughts raced through my mind like wild horses, trampling over my doubts and fears. The love between my father and Manny had become a tangled web, but I was no longer the passive daughter watching from the sidelines. It was time for revenge, but there was a twist that wrapped my heart with a bittersweet tension. I wanted to reshape our relationship, not destroy it. I wanted my father to see the truth, the way I saw it, and to feel the undeniable connection we had as a family. I had no intentions of losing him to someone who seemed, at times, too good to be true. With the subtlety of a whisper, I began to plant seeds of doubt in my father's mind about Manny's true intentions. The evenings after dinner became my stage, a place where I could carefully slip my words into conversations, like a gardener sowing tiny, insidious seeds. Dad, I would begin, stirring the pot while pretending to casually reflect on our family memories. Remember how we spent summer vacations building that treehouse? I mean, those were some fun times, right? It feels like Manny seems more interested in other things now, doesn't he? I would watch as my father's brow furrowed deeply, shadows of uncertainty creeping into his wise eyes. Each remark was like a stone dropped into a still pond, sending ripples outwards. Slowly, I noticed my father's once unwavering adoration for Manny beginning to tremble. I had hoped that familiarity would breed contempt, and now I was witnessing it unfold before my very eyes. Every time I pressed about Manny's charm, the more I sensed a shift within my father. Jay, my dad, started to notice the little ways their bond felt more like a facade than a solid foundation. It thrilled me to see the cloud of doubt begin to settle over him like a thick fog. One evening, while flipping through old photo albums, I laid it all bare to him. Over dinner, as we passed the meatloaf, I couldn't resist saying, "You know, Dad, it's kind of wild to realize how many of our experiences have been lost to Manny's supposed greatness. Like, look at this photo from the beach trip. We were so close then." My heart raced as I searched his face for a reaction. I could see Jay's posture shift, the weight of my words sinking in. He was no longer the relaxed figure tumbling stories over his fork. I could sense his mind drifting. Rapidly, I began to relish that small victory. "It's just that sometimes it seems Manny's achievements take precedence over everything we shared." I pressed gently, testing the waters. Tension hung thick in the air like a heavy cloak draped over my father. Each family gathering that passed became a dense fog of mixed emotions. I could feel something shifting within Jay. A breaking point was on the horizon as he began to reflect on the changes I was igniting in our relationship. The resentment that had bubbled up inside me morphed, transforming into a battle cry within my heart. He had loved me once, and I wanted him to remember that love buried beneath the surface. I needed to escalate my efforts. I chose to pour out more personalized stories, each one laced with nostalgia and a tinge of bitterness. Like that time we had the family picnic by the lake and you turned that old fishing boat into your personal pirate ship. I offered one Friday night, sitting across the table from him, the scent of roasted chicken swirling in the air. We laughed for hours. Do you think Manny would even care about that, Dad? I feel like he never really appreciates the family things we've built together. I could see Jay's mind racing through the memories I had invoked, and it thrilled me to orchestrate this emotional symphony. For every successful comment, however, an acute pang of doubt would stab through me. What if my plan backfired? What if Jay turned his affections even further toward Manny, viewing my comments as those of just a jealous daughter, a bitter whisper in the corners of his mind? Those thoughts haunted my nights, tossing and turning under the weight of anxiety, consumed by images of our family shattering apart. I visualized Jay sitting in rapt admiration of Manny, his love growing like an unanswered prayer, untouchable and intangible, slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. Each evening was a disturbing cycle. I felt like I was playing a dangerous game with fate, as if I was trying to balance a precision time bomb poised to explode at the slightest shift. Then came the day I loathed to face, the upcoming family gathering to celebrate Manny's latest achievement. My heart raced, both excitement and dread intertwining in an unsettling dance. This was my moment, the climax of my carefully crafted scheme, a chance to unveil the truth that could collapse the charade of adoration my father had wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. As the sun dipped below the horizon the night before the gathering, I hunkered down at my desk, assembling a heartfelt video that would weave together the threads of our shared past against Manny's shiny, superficial greatness. The glow of my laptop illuminated my anxious features as I painstakingly selected photographs, each candid glimpse of joy I had shared with my brother frozen in time, juxtaposed against the polished success stories of Manny with Jay draped proudly beside him. Moments poured out like water from a fountain, tracing the joys of our childhood, birthdays that felt like fairy tales, family vacations to places that echoed laughter into the ether, the sacred memories that now felt eclipsed by distractions. I could feel each frame absorbing my pain as I scrolled through the digital scrapbook of our lives. The air around me was electric, charged with the anticipation of the coming reckoning. I had to ensure that Jay could see what I had captured: love, laughter, warmth. It had not vanished, it had simply been overshadowed. As midnight approached, pressing the final touches onto my video, a wave of conviction crashed over me. I was determined to make my father see the light, even if it meant dragging him through darkness first. I could hear my heart hammering against my ribcage, a relentless reminder of purpose. Tomorrow, I whispered into the quiet night, feeling the weight of my resolve settle over my shoulders with a mixture of dread and elation. Tomorrow, everything changes. And as I closed my eyes, surrendering to a restless sleep, I knew that the seeds of doubt had taken root. Tomorrow I would pull my father back to me, back to the love that thrived in our shared history and away from the alluring shadow of Manny. The stage was set, and I would not back down. The day of the gathering arrived, becoming a blur of scents and warmth, the air swirling with laughter and the clinking of plates. The aroma of roasted chicken and seasoned vegetables filled the house, wrapping us in a comforting embrace. I stood at the edge of the living room, my heart thumping in my chest as I watched the family I longed to belong to gather at the long oak table, smiling and reminiscing. I felt an electric tension crackling between us, charged with unsaid words and unresolved feelings. My brother Manny sat at the head of the table, his charismatic smile illuminating his face as Jay regarded him with pride, completely unaware of the turmoil within me. Every cheerful exchange between them felt like a dagger in my heart. The final piece of my plan clicked into place with eerie precision. As the golden hour light streamed through the window, casting shimmering reflections on the polished surfaces, I swallowed hard. This was it, the pivotal moment they had all unknowingly brought upon themselves. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with the bittersweet scent of nostalgia mixed with dinner. The warmth of the gathering enveloped me, but my heart raced as I stood. Everyone was preoccupied, laughing and sharing stories from days gone by, basking in the familiar comfort of family. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a blend of adrenaline and nervousness as I broke the spell of joyous conversation. "Excuse me, everyone, I have something to share," I announced, my voice quaking slightly, a mixture of dread and fierce determination bubbling within me. The room fell silent. Chatter faded into an uncomfortable stillness as all eyes turned toward me, wide-eyed and curious. Jay looked both intrigued and apprehensive, his brow furrowing as he awaited what I had to reveal. I pressed play on the video, my hands trembling against the remote, drawing in a shaky breath. In that instant, I felt the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. It was as if the world had slowed, the anticipation clinging to the air around us. The first images flickered onto the screen, illuminating faces from the past, Mitch and me, laughing, carefree, building our childhood memories. Each frame held echoes of joy intertwined with the bittersweet reminder of how Manny had risen to be the cherished golden boy. I felt my heart tug as Mitch grinned, his eyes shining with delight in one of the frames, juxtaposed against Manny basking in the sunlight with Jay, their bond clear and unbreakable. As the pictures whirred by, I realized they were a tapestry of emotions, woven with love that had once brightly colored my world. I began narrating, trying to keep my voice steady as I revealed the highlights of our twisted family dynamics. You see, this is us playing in the backyard, I said, pointing at a picture of Mitch swinging on the old tire while I stood proudly beside him, my hair wild and carefree. And this was the day of Mitch's first baseball game. He hit a home run right here, right in this very yard. My voice wavered slightly as I continued, but did anyone notice when I came in second place at the spelling bee? Or when I finally learned to ride my bike without training wheels? No, all I heard was, "Look at Manny, he's such a natural at everything." Gasps filled the room as the realization of the truth ricocheted off the walls, the uneasy atmosphere thickening as my words hung in the air. I needed them to see, to understand the years of neglect, the inconsistencies in love and attention. Jay's expression morphed, shifting from pride to confusion, then finally despair. I could hardly breathe as the enormity of the moment flooded over me. My plan had worked beyond my wildest dreams. I pressed on, revealing how Manny's golden boy status cast a long shadow over Mitch and me. "And look here," I said. The image changed to show a family gathering at a birthday party. Everybody was smiling, but I could feel the heaviness in my chest. While they cheered for Manny, I continued. I remember standing off to the side, feeling invisible, holding my own birthday cake, yet never receiving the same cheers. I stopped asking for attention because it hurt too much to be ignored. With each moment the video progressed, the room changed. Chaos erupted around me, voices clashing and mingling in disbelief. "How could we not see this?" someone murmured. "We've been so blinded." At that moment, I turned my gaze toward Jay, searching for the flicker of realization lighting up in his eyes. With each gasp, I sensed the heaviness of their regrets weighing down on them, the veil of ignorance lifting. Jay looked lost, stunned, as the truth unraveled around him like tangled string. His face turned pale, lips pressed together in disbelief, and I saw something shatter within him. "Manny." Jay stammered, words tangled in his mind, hands gripping the table as if seeking for a solid anchor in this storm of revelations. Manny appeared on the verge of tears, his mouth slightly open, grappling with the sudden revelation that his triumphs had come at a cost he had never considered. "I didn't know. I thought," he began, his voice trembling. "I thought you guys were okay with it." "You never asked," I shot back, my voice laced with the frustration I had stifled for years. "You were too busy being the person everyone celebrated while we faded into the background." Jay's face crumpled, and I could almost see the gears turning in his mind. The flashes of memories colliding with this circle of realizations were too much to bear. "I had no idea. I thought I was doing my best for everyone," he finally said, his voice cracking, the protective facade crumbling as the raw, painful truth emerged. "You missed the point, Jay," I said, my heart pounding, not backing down. "We wanted you to see us, to be present, to be there when we needed you, not just in the moments that shone the brightest for Manny." The silence that followed was thick, heavy, and filled with unshed tears and unspoken apologies. I risked a glance at Mitch, who had remained quiet, searching his face for any sign that he had been affected by my words. His expression mirrored mine, a mixture of hope and lingering pain. For him, this moment was a chance for healing, a chance to not let our childhood become a distant memory buried under a mountain of neglect. Suddenly, the video flickered, providing respite from the chaos. The screen displayed an image of the three of us as children, arms slung around each other's shoulders, laughing under the summer sun. It felt like a cruel reminder of what we once had, yet also a glimmer of what we could possibly reclaim. Jay stepped towards us, slowly moving through the gathered crowd. "I am so sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with the weight of years gone by. "I should have taken notice. I shouldn't have allowed the love I felt for Manny to blind me. I should have been there for both of you." "Sorry isn't enough anymore," I blurted out, emotions surging with each word, my heart racing as I confronted him. "Years of neglect can't be erased with a few words. It doesn't undo the hurt, the loneliness. We needed you, Jay. We needed a father, not just a figure in the background." A lump formed in my throat, but I pressed on, fueled by the bitter truth that had been simmering for far too long. "What we needed was your attention, your love consistently, not just when it was convenient or seemed worthy of celebrating. We craved your support, your recognition when we were shining, but also when we were struggling." Jay's expression shifted, a storm of realization swirling in his eyes. His shoulders slumped, the weight of understanding crashing into him. I could see the acceptance dawning. He was beginning to grasp that love could not be a currency he decided to distribute based on merit. The cacophony finally subsided. Quietness settled over us like a fragile cover. I could sense the revelation sweeping through the room like an autumn breeze, scattering leaves of doubt and revealing the raw earth underneath, the love festering, the hurt aching, now laid bare in the open. "What can we do now?" Manny whispered, his earlier confidence replaced by humility. "How do we mend this?" The question hung in the air, elusive like the fireflies that danced outside, teasing us with the flicker of possibility. I could feel everyone leaning closer, eager to grasp what we could do to regain what had been lost, if anything could be salvaged from the ashes of our fractured bond. "We start by opening our hearts," I suggested, my voice steadying. "We talk, we communicate, there can be no more neglect. Let's promise each other that we will speak up. Tell us what you need, and we will not shy away anymore." Tears glimmered in Jay's eyes, and I felt the weight of the years lift just slightly. This was a beginning, a fragile step toward healing. Perhaps amidst the chaos, we could find our way back to each other. The knot in my chest eased as I saw the flicker of hope in everyone's eyes. It was a small flame, but it was enough to break the darkness. Together, Manny softly added, his voice strained but steadfast, as if uttering a sacred vow. We rebuild, we reclaim, and we never let that divide happen again. As collective agreement blossomed in the room, I felt the warmth returning like a gentle blanket wrapping around us, sealing in a moment of newfound understanding. The strength of our bond had been tested, but perhaps we could finally evolve, not in the shadows, but as a family learning to dance once more in the light. As the echoes of chaos faded, I stood there, breathless, unsure of what would follow. Jay, my father, had always been a man of pride, a fortress swinging open only to reveal glimpses of vulnerability. This moment felt monumental, as if the very fabric of our lives was woven with frayed threads soon to be pulled apart. There he was, his carefully maintained exterior stripped away, unveiling a raw vulnerability. Those years of hurt and neglect had finally come to head, the truth cut through the air like a knife. Jay's face twisted in confusion and pain, a mosaic of emotions battling within him. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse and cracking with regret. I had no idea. I thought I was simply being supportive. I never intended to forget about you both. His hands trembled, almost as if he tried to physically grasp what had unraveled in mere moments. Oh, how my heart ached for the father I always wished he could be. Did he not see the chasm of hurt that had opened up between us, wide enough to swallow us whole? You don't understand, I replied, my voice steady yet fragile, echoing the tumult roaring within me. I forced myself to hold his gaze, grounding myself with each word. We wanted your love, too. We needed you then. The room fell silent, and my words lingered heavily in the air, as if they were made of lead, weighing down the already tense atmosphere. Jay's shoulders slumped, burdened by the reality that settled in like an unwanted guest. I felt as if I were watching a man unmasked, stripped of pride, exposed and vulnerable, grief crashing against him like a relentless tide. As he took slow, measured steps forward to occupy the edge of the couch, he sat down, burying his head in his hands. I could almost taste the bitterness and regret, a tangible thing filling the room. The truth crushed down upon us, heavy and unforgiving. He began to sob, a broken sound that resounded off the walls, reverberating through the knots of my heart. The grief was so raw and palpable that it cut through the bitterness I had held onto for years. I had envisioned this moment as one of revenge, a cathartic release packaged in anger and resentment. But as I stood there, my own emotions bubbling to the surface, I realized this was not just about revenge, it was about understanding and healing. I never wanted it to be like this, he managed between heavy breaths, tears streaming down his face, leaving glistening trails. I thought I was doing right by you both. I did not respond immediately, my own heart resting for understanding. How could he have thought that neglecting us would ever be right? But as he continued, his voice became softer, pained. Manny needed me. He needed me so much I thought that was what you wanted too. His words rolled over me like the tide retreating from the shore, slow, deliberate, lapping at the edges of my heart as I started to understand him as a flawed human being rather than an idol. I swallowed hard, feeling emotions tangle within me, clashing against walls I thought would never crumble. But we needed you too, I finally spoke, no longer with the sharp bite of resentment, but with a fragile vulnerability of my own. You weren't there for us, and it hurt more than you could know. As I looked at him, I could see the realization washing over his features, a dawning comprehension settling in. I felt the walls around my heart soften slightly, the urgency of retribution replaced by the greater need for connection. He slowly lifted his head, his eyes filled with sorrow and shame. I had no idea, he repeated, almost as if trying to convince himself. I was lost in my own life, thinking I was doing the right thing. His voice cracked slightly, revealing just how shattered he felt. I could hardly recognize this man before me, stripped of bravado, nothing more than a father aching with regret. The moments that followed felt surreal, like stepping into a different reality where pain transformed into something profound. Jay began to open up, sharing his own fears, how his work had consumed him, how he thought he was being the supportive father by pouring all his focus into Manny. I thought you both wanted me to stay out of it, to just be there when needed. I was trying to give him a better future, he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper, the weight of his words manifesting in the form of tears that refused to stop flowing. Each revelation of his own failures chipped away at the ice that had encased our hearts for years. I listened intently, my heart aching for the boy he had been, not just as my father, but as my brother too. We shared stories of painful memories, moments I thought I had to carry silently. Do you remember that summer when we tried to fix the old car in the garage? He asked, his lips cornering upward for a split second. It was a disaster, but we were laughing the whole time. My pulse quickened at the memory. It had started as a bonding experience, but ended in a puddle of parts and swearing. I laughed softly, but it was tinged with sadness. Yeah, and it ended with you getting mad at Manny for not being able to lift the engine block. Jay nodded, a mix of embarrassment and nostalgia coloring his cheeks. I was so caught up in wanting perfection that I forgot to enjoy our time together. His admission cracked something deep within me. My anger was dissolving as we peeled away layers of hurt and misunderstanding, revealing our shared experiences woven with threads of pain and happiness. What had started as chains of revenge morphed into an opportunity for rebirth. I realized this was not about punishment or seeking some twisted form of justice. It was about release, a cleansing of souls entangled and pained, something far more profound than I could have dreamed. Days turned into weeks, and his transformation unfolded before me like a blossoming flower, roots tangled in the soil of our shared traumas yet reaching for sunlight, desperately yearning for connection. Each small gesture became fleeting jolts of warmth, filling the space where love had long been denied. Our gatherings changed, shifting from awkward silences to vibrant laughter now echoing in the halls. When had I last heard that laughter? How had we allowed bitterness to stifle it all those years? It felt surreal to have my father, this new version of him, embracing my side for the first time in years. I could barely recognize this man emerging anew, an effort to mend his broken relationships with Mitch and me like tiny stitches threading back together a once-torn fabric of our family. As spring rolled around, Jay shocked us both with an inviting gesture glowing with hope. One evening, he gathered us both, his expression serious yet brimming with something that felt closer to joy. The air was thick with anticipation. "I want to start something new," he announced, a crumpled piece of paper cradled in his hands. My heart raced as he unfolded the crinkled invitation, reverently placing it in front of us. "Family nights," he proclaimed, enthusiasm lighting up his gaze. "I want us to come together every week. It's time we create experiences, share stories, laugh together, reconnect as a family. I want us to truly rediscover each other." The inscribed phrase on the invitation shone brighter than any diamond. "Let us rediscover our family together." Those words warmed my heart, melting away any remaining vestiges of anger and betrayal I had harbored. I could almost feel the walls around my heart begin to crack, crumble like old plaster, leaving spaces for new memories to fill the void. In that moment, I learned the truth I had long desired. Sometimes revenge does not lead to destruction. Sometimes it allows seeds of redemption and healing to sprout in the most unexpected of places, crafting a new path forward, filling the asters of life with colors we had forgotten existed. As I shared a smile with Mitch, I realized that it was within these fragile connections woven through vulnerability that we would find strength. I could see it glimmering ahead of us, a shared future anchored not just in blood ties but in renewed love. I stepped closer to Jay, reaching out as if to confirm what I felt, and he clasped my hand in his as if his touch was a promise. With every heartbeat, I began to believe in what we could become together. "Okay, Dad," I said, a smile breaking through my once guarded heart. "Let's rediscover our family." And from that moment on, each step closer nurtured love that had been long forgotten, paving a road woven with laughter and transformed by understanding, echoing through the walls of our home and within the depths of our hearts.